It is Saturday midday in Athens, Greece, and I thought we'd go for a walk and talk about some very interesting news topics. Very interesting news topics. They are related to what's going on in between Russia and Ukraine, but more so, I would say these new topics have to do with the globalist war against Russia, the economic war against Russia. And if you're going after Russia, that means you're going after China as well. Let's call it the globalist world order, the neoliberal world order, the fair world order, which is what Lavrov has dubbed it, the fair or the fairer world order, when he met Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Beijing. So let's get to it. Elections, big elections happening this weekend, and the no confidence vote. So we got votes happening. I'd like to say it's all happening on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. But we have to talk about Serbia, we have to talk about Hungary, and we have to talk about Pakistan. And so let's start things off with Pakistan, because this is a really interesting story, a very interesting development. So far, Pakistan has stayed out of this mess between the United States, the EU, NATO, and Russia vis-a-vis Ukraine. And Pakistan has taken a position where they have friendly relations with the collective West, but they have excellent relations with Russia as well. And Imran Khan, the leader of Pakistan, has said that he is going to exert his country's sovereignty. His country is a sovereign nation. They're going to be able to choose the foreign policy that they wish to choose, the foreign policy path that they want to go on. They have the sovereign right to do it, and that they're not going to get caught up in this economic war that is taking place, the economic war of attrition that Alexander likes to call it. And they're not going to choose sides. They want to trade with Russia. They want to buy oil and commodities from Russia, and they're going to probably get it at a good price. They don't want to go onto the unfriendly list, as the Kremlin has dubbed it. But Imran Khan is now facing a no confidence vote, because there are certain members in his government and in his party that have defected, that have dropped out. And this has led to a no confidence vote. I'm sure people from Pakistan will be able to add some more context to what's going on in Pakistan. But I'm just giving an overall view of things. And he has this no confidence vote to stay in power, because he's had these government defections, these parliament defections. And Khan is claiming that he has documentation showing that the United States has threatened Pakistan that if it does not impose sanctions against Russia and go against Russia, then Pakistan will pay a very, very heavy price. And Khan is claiming that these documents prove that the United States is meddling in Pakistan's internal affairs. The United States, the Department of State, has denied these claims, and they have come out with statements saying that it's up to Pakistan to decide its future, and they don't meddle in countries' internal politics. All right, if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. But look, that's the statement coming out of the United States, and that's where we are. We are now at a point where this Sunday, and I believe it is this Sunday, Khan will be facing this no confidence vote. If he loses this no confidence vote, then I imagine his government collapses. I guess we go into elections, if I'm not wrong. If a new government can't be formed, I guess he will have to go into elections. I'm not sure exactly what the process is. If the no confidence vote turns out against him, but that is where he is. I'm going to cross the street here, and I'm going to be stuck right in the median as these cars pass. But I'll still talk. So Khan has actually come out and he's praised the Modi government in statements. And boy, did the opposition get pissed off when he did this. He's come out and he said the Modi government, good for them for exerting their sovereignty, good for them for staying neutral. Oh, here we are right here. This is all glass, by the way. That is all glass. Let me get up close so everyone can see it. You see? It's like shards of glass. It's one stacked on top of the other. Very cool. So, where was I? Yeah, he was praising the Indian government and the Modi government because, you know, they're exerting their sovereignty and they're choosing their foreign policy that is in the best interest of their people. And Khan is saying that Pakistan is going to do the same exact thing. Whatever is in the best interest of their people and of the state of Pakistan, that's what his government is going to do. And they're not going to be influenced by these foreign meddlers. And so this is where we are. He says he has the documents for this, and he says that it is without a doubt the United States that has instigated this defection and that has pushed Pakistan towards a no confidence vote so that the opposition parties can take power, and then they can push Pakistan towards a position where they are sanctioning Russia and they end up being one of the unfriendly countries towards Russia. So that is the situation in Pakistan. What an incredible story this is. And Khan is really, he's coming out strong. He is coming out strong, taking a very populist position. Very, very fascinating story. Let's now go towards, let's move towards Serbia. Serbia has elections this Sunday. Now, the elections are pretty definite, I would say. You're going to have the government of the incumbent Vučić win. His party is going to win. He will most definitely be elected president, and there should be no surprises there. What makes this story interesting is that in the capital city of Belgrade, it is a close race for some local government positions in Belgrade. And there are some people in Vučić's government, his government officials, who are saying that when the votes are counted and they're in, and the Vučić government, I believe it's called the Progressive Party. The Progressive Party is what it's called, or the People's Progressive Party, I believe is what his party is. People from Serbia, correct me if I'm wrong. What is Vučić's his party that's going to win the elections? And Vučić has been in power now, I believe, for 10 years. He's not antagonistic to the EU either. He's pro-Russia. I mean, he keeps very friendly ties with Russia, but he's managed to keep friendly ties with the EU. He's a skilled politician. Some people love him, some people don't like him, but he does have skill to stay in power. And he has taken, during this crisis, he has taken a pro-Russia stance because that's what's going to win him the election. But where am I? There are a lot of people in his government who have been coming out with statements saying that when the votes are counted, various NGO and color revolution agents are going to try to create a Ukraine Maidan 2014 situation in Belgrade and in Serbia in order to push the country towards chaos and once again move the country away from Russia and move it towards NATO, the EU, and the collective West. Do I think this is going to happen? I don't think so. But, don't put anything past these guys. Don't put anything past these NGOs, George Soros, EU, NATO, color revolution specialists. They're getting desperate, and they want to pick off country after country that is supporting Russia, and they want to move them towards the sanctions Russia side of the column. So keep an eye out for what's happening in Serbia. I think Serbia should be okay. The elections should have a peaceful and predictable outcome, given the polling. And I don't anticipate problems, but you always have to be vigilant. You can never let your guard down when it comes to regime change and color revolutions, especially Serbia. Serbia has always been in the crosshairs of NATO and the EU, and they have been gunning for Serbia for decades upon decades. And they're not going to stop now. They don't give up. They do not give up. So keep that in mind. Now that Russia is preoccupied with Ukraine, you could see these neocons looking at Serbia right now and the Balkans in general as an opportunity to start something up. So you always got to remain vigilant and keep an eye out as to what's happening in Serbia and in the Balkans in general. So we have those elections. And then we have on Sunday the elections in Hungary. Big elections. Viktor Orban, who just 2 months ago was the dictator of the world, according to the European Union, and Joe Biden and the Biden White House, the collective West. They called Orban a thug, a dictator, the next Hitler, and all of these names were being thrown at Orban. And so what did they do? They cobbled together the EU and the Biden White House and NATO and all of these forces. They cobbled together a coalition government, a coalition party, a party of parties. That's a better way to explain it, to take on Orban, because Orban is popular. And if he was going to go up against one party at a time during these elections, he would win in a landslide. But what they did is they put together the Communist Party, the far-right NAZI Party. They put together the Socialists, the Greens. They cobbled together 6 parties, put them together under one umbrella, and they basically told them, you guys are going to be the opposition party, and you're going to take on Orban and Fidesz, his party, Fidesz. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And the polling now is pretty tight. Orban has a lead. The last polls had Orban at around like 41, 42%. And this coalition, this mix, this Frankenstein thing that they've put together of parties was at like 38, 39. And of course, if Orban were to lose, God forbid if you were to lose, then this coalition of parties would be forced to take the opposite stance of what Orban's stance has been to date with regards to NATO, the EU, Ukraine, and all of these anti-globalist policies. Orban just the other day said that for Hungary, Russian gas is vital. Hungary cannot survive without Russian gas, so he's going to comply with the ruble for gas policy that the Kremlin has put in place. At least those are the indications that Hungary will comply with it, because there is no other option. Orban has also said that Hungary is not going to take sides in this conflict, even though they are Ukraine's neighbor. They bordered Ukraine to the west. And he said that he's not going to be allowing weapons to pour in through Hungary, through the Hungarian borders into Ukraine, though there are reports that small weapons and stuff via NATO are being passed off into Ukraine via Hungary. For the most part, Orban has taken a position and a stance where he's kept Hungary neutral. For the most part, he's had to go along with the EU on a lot of things because Hungary is part of the EU. It's part of NATO, so he has had to sign on to the sanctions and closing the airspace to Russian commercial jets and aviation and all of these things. You know, he's had to go along with this stuff. Let me sit down here. I'm at this park in the center of Athens. So Orban had to go along with this, but given the fact that Hungary is a country inside of the EU and a part of NATO, Orban has managed to keep a very independent and neutral stance. And it resonates. The people in Hungary, I believe, the feel that I get is that for the most part, the people in Hungary don't want Hungary entangled in this conflict. They want Hungary to remain, for the most part, a neutral party to all of this. They want Hungary to have excellent relations with the collective West, with Europe, as well as with Russia and China and the East. Well, That's not going to fly with the collective West, because this is an economic war of attrition, and they have to pick off whatever states they can pick off and move them from the neutral, pro-Russia side of the column to the sanctioned Russia, anti-Russia, anti-China side of the column. So we have big elections in Hungary. Very big elections. Let's keep an eye out to see what happens in Hungary. I have a feeling that Orban is going to win, but I'm not in Hungary, so what do I know? People that are in Hungary, comment down below. Let me know how you guys see it, because it's going to be a really, really big election. You know, Hungary's kind of isolated now that Poland has moved squarely into the camp of the EU globalists, anti-China, anti-Russia, collective West side of things. There was a time when Poland and Hungary formed this bond, this alliance against the globalist EU. Well, since the conflict in Ukraine broke out, Poland has now firmly been brought into the EU collective West side of the equation. So Hungary is kind of on its own here. It is on its own. The Visegrad Four, this other coalition, has pretty much broken apart because of this Russia-Ukraine situation, and because Hungary has chosen to take a neutral stance. It is big. This is going to be a big Sunday. It is going to be a historic weekend. And we're either going to see a lot of change, or we're going to see the populist nation-state vote win. And if we see the populist nation-state multipolar fair world order win out, well, then it's going to be historic. If we see these countries from Pakistan to Hungary, Serbia, I'm not worried about, but say Pakistan and Hungary, if we see a change there, well, that's going to be big. You might have Pakistan and Hungary now moving over to the sanctioning Russia, going after China side. So it is going to be a historic weekend. Real quick, you know, over the past 5 years, we have seen the globalists pick off populist leader after populist leader. Now, the leaders that I'm going to talk about, that I'm going to name off, aren't pro-Russia. I'm not saying these leaders are pro-Russia or anti-Russia. I'm not even going to say that these leaders that have been picked off the last 5-6 years by the globalists are themselves not globalist to a certain extent. Some are very anti-globalist. Some are just a little bit anti-globalist. Some are pro-EU but have a little rebellious streak in them. But either way, in the last 5 years, we have seen populist type of leaders like Donald Trump, who is probably the most populist and the biggest name, get picked off. I mean, America First, the MAGA movement, that was a no-go. They managed to push Donald Trump out of power. We've seen Marine Le Pen get marginalized, even though she has a second chance now to win the elections in France. But let's see if she can get on track and beat out Macron. But there was a point in time where they picked off Marine Le Pen. They even had cases against her for crimes, going through the courts, working through the courts to pick her off. And they did manage to water down her populist message. I mean, they did damage to Marine Le Pen. We had Matteo Salvini in Italy. At one time, he was a strong populist leader. He's been marginalized. We've had Sebastian Kurz in Austria. He was someone that was part of the club. I mean, he was part of the EU globalist club, though he had a rebellious streak in him. Every now and then, he would vote against the EU and he would go against the globalists. He got picked off. Who else? Who else has been picked off? We've had all kinds of leaders picked off and sidelined who had a populist, anti-globalist type or style of agenda. I'm trying to think. Is there anybody else? I can't think of anybody else on that list, but I'm sure there are. Let me know in the comments down below what other leaders were rising or were already in power and then they got sidelined. In the Czech Republic, you had Babiš. I'm not saying he was pro-Russia by any means, but he was also more of a populist type of leader, and they implemented the model that they're going to implement in Hungary to get him out last elections. In other words, they cobbled together 3, 4, 5 different parties that have nothing in common. They cobbled them together and they beat him. And they beat him in the elections. So you had Babic in the Czech Republic. And anyway, you know, it's the last 5-6 years, we've seen this trend of the globalists just taken out. Populist leader after populist leader, anti-globalist leader after anti-globalist leader. And some of these leaders have been pro-Russia. For example, in the Czech Republic, you had the president, a symbolic position, but nevertheless the president. I believe it was Zeman, who was the president of the Czech Republic, who was very friendly towards Russia. And when the elections were unfolding in the Czech Republic, he ended up getting ill with the coof, and then he had some other sicknesses, and he was completely sidelined. And he was very pro-Russia. He had excellent relations with Russia, and he believed that the EU should try to find a compromise with Russia and work with Russia. So he was sidelined. Anyway, I mean, let me know if there's some other leaders. Steve Turley likes to call them the leaders that look at creating a civilizational type of state, populist, civilizational, patriotic type of leaders. Dr. Steve Turley does an excellent job in breaking down the type of leaders that Orban or Modi or these types of leaders are. But anyway, that is the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. Take care.